Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire. I am your podcast host, Phoenix Ha, CEO of AdBeacon, my favorite first-party data and attribution platform. And I'm so excited, again, always excited for another episode because I get to invite not only friends, but incredible people in the space, specifically in D2C, but it could apply to anything, regarding their failures and how we use those failures as catalysts to incredible things like growth, whatever it may be. Now, today's guest is different. I have never actually met this guest until today. However, we are in the same circles. He is such a special human in my heart, and we, again, haven't actually talked. So before I even dive into introducing him, welcome Dee Deng to the pod. Dee, say hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I gotta ask. I know that you're meant to be in the asking seat, but I gotta ask.
Fine.
How am I special in your heart?
You're special in you're Chinese. Are you?
Yes.
I'm Chinese.
Yes, very nice.
So there's that line. Second line is we also share founder together.
That's true.
Right. And then also just I watch. So I'm in a weird position where I'm new to the space. So I get to watch everybody. I watch their character, I watch what they post, I watch what they do, who they are. And I've watched you just encourage people with this beautiful ferocity. And I very much value it, which is why I asked you to be on this podcast.
I appreciate that. It's so wild because when I hit send, which I rarely do these days just because of work and just going into my submarine, but I never imagined that, like, my brain doesn't compute that other people receive it.
Yeah.
I just hit send. So it's wild to be able to get that feedback loop, which I don't get quite often. Again, I told you, like, before we hit record, I haven't done this in a long time, like just interfaced with people and podcasts and all that. I haven't been to a conference since 2019.
Which is crazy to me because you have a podcast mic, you have a full setup. And then you're like, I haven't done
this forever. This is called the procrastination machine. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get the gear, bro. Because when I get the gear, it's going to happen 6 months later.
I love it. And for you to say that you just press send, it's like a testament that you give far more than you receive, which I think should be the heartbeat of everything that we do. But all right, let me introduce Dee the way I know how, which is, again, I know about Dee for a multitude of reasons that he doesn't even know. So when I came into the space, I think in previous episodes, I told you the director of paid media was like, Phoenix, I need you to watch YouTube videos of Shaq, Nick Shackelford, and he'll teach you everything. The second person was Dee Deng. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'd watch videos of you. I think I saw yours at Affiliate World. I was like, okay, awesome. Cool to see him in the space. Really strong communicator. Then I knew about Hook because I would hear the name of Right Hook constantly in the agency space. I'm like, oh, who's that Hook? Okay, Dee Deng. And secretly, like, I am a biased person when it comes to another Asian in the community because I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. Anyway, but I think the formal introduction is Dee is the co-founder and CEO of Right Hook Media. It's a D2C growth agency. You're a 2-time Australian Financial Review Fast 100 company. That's amazing. Yeah, I
don't know how he pulled that off.
You did it.
Do not know how he pulled.
On top of that, you were also one of the educators and founder, which we share together. And I think that heartbeat, like I said, of giving more than receiving, educating people in the space is huge. But also, Dee is just rad on Twitter. So if you don't already follow Dee on Twitter, please do. He will be your biggest fan. Welcome to the pod, Dee.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this.
I'm so excited. Okay. So now that those introductions are done, I want to hear the real intro, the one that matters. So let's just say we were at a barbecue together and your wife pulls me or a family member pulls me and goes, Phoenix, I need you to meet Dee. How would he or she describe you and what would they say you do for work?
Okay. Nat would say, I think he sells stuff online and runs a 100-person team. I just come back every time he comes home. It's just stories about Luke or stories about Ray or stories about Scott or how we need to come together and everything's remote and it's all really crazy. But I think he sells stuff online. Is that what he does? But you got to meet him anyway because he sells stuff online.
Oh, I really like that. Honestly, that's so good. That's like far beyond any. I asked my fiance the other day, I was like, I asked my podcast guest this question. How would you answer? And he'd be like, You do first party data attribution and you do the click, and he couldn't come up with the word journey. So instead, he said something about this really transcendental term. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? It's just click journey. It's okay. But they try so hard and they support us so much.
know.
But that's
I
awesome.
know.
So her name is Nat.
Natalie, yeah. Met, and this is why, right? We met when we were both in film school.
Okay.
Right? Like the worst degree to ever, like practically speaking. My Chinese parents were just like, why are you doing a film degree? What is wrong with you? Why did you drop out of law school to do film degree? And then, so we were both filmmakers. She was my first cinematographer for a short film that I was directing. That was our path. And then stuff happened and like she fell sick. She has chronic fatigue. So all the kind of sole breadwinner role came to me. And then I went, I think we're just going to start this agency. And then that's how I fell into like marketing and growth and all that stuff and had my first tech startup. It was wild.
It's a wild time. I like how you're like, and then I became the breadwinner. You know what's so funny is like in the US, there's this expectation that the male always becomes the breadwinner. And I think in every relationship I've had, I've always been the breadwinner. And I love that your dynamic of even introducing it was like, oh yes, and then I had to. And it's, yeah, that's how it should be. It should just be it's a ping pong. There's this thing, I forget, I'm going to say I coined it, but in reality, I probably didn't. And
own it. Just own it.
Own it. I said, this was me. There's this idea that you and your partner are two plants, right? And you each water each other and you pour into each other. And just because one blossoms flowers before the other doesn't mean that the other person's roots aren't doing some serious work. And you very seldom do both blossom flowers or fruit at the same time, right?
100%.
So you're looking for a partner because of the pretty flowers. I guarantee you through the different seasons, those will go away. And then you're just stuck with soil. And do you like the soil you're in? AK, do you like the shit you're in?
Totally. And also, guys, ladies and gentlemen, fertilizer is shit. So if you're fertilizing one another, there is some shit involved.
It's so good. Look, it's an educational podcast. Look at
right.
That. Also, you really did the dung. Is it dung?
Deng. Yeah, a dung in Mandarin.
Yeah, so pho is mine.
Nice.
So yeah. Okay, awesome. But you know what, Dee? I want to learn a little bit more about you in terms of your failures, because I know that you prefaced before we started recording that you have this like gamification of what we could potentially do with your failures, or just like whatever it may be. I'm not even going to say much, but please walk me through a time or multiple times that you maybe would consider a failure, how you clawed your way back with fire. Because in the end, all of our failures need to be catalysts with fire for growth. Otherwise, what are they? They're just failures. So bring us back there. We want to get to know you, the nitty gritty. Go for it.
Yes. All right. Like any good Asian student, I did my homework.
Ooh.
I've got a choose your own adventure for you. All right. Choose your own adventure. I'm an 80s kid, so I remember those books where it's if you open the door on your left, turn to page 67. Otherwise, do that. So anyway, choose your own adventure. Failure number 1, my first venture, which I bootstrapped, landed me broke, $200 in the account, still got the receipts. When I came to that realization on that day, 2 weeks after that, I closed $40K in business. So rock bottom, I got a bank app notification while we were watching TV at home at dinner. It was my stepson and my wife. And then I looked at my bank account, looked to my left, and decided not to tell them that we only had $200 and decided to do something about it. That's adventure number 1. Adventure number 2, not as exciting, but I don't want to taint it. The first time a client tried to sue us, 6 months after we parted ways, they took stuff in-house and they gave us an 8 out of a 10 during the exit interview. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is the most recent one. When one of my exec team, he took some time off, came back. The Monday he came back, he said, just Slack me. You got some time? We jumped on a call and he gave me feedback, which was really hard for him to give, that I was turning into a massive pigeon asshole. And if you pick that one, I'll explain what pigeon asshole means.
Okay. I do need to know what pigeon asshole means because I don't think it's on Urban Dictionary yet. But when we're done with this podcast, it will be. Let's start with door number 1. And then I want to beeline it to door number 3. Not that door number 2 isn't exciting, but I think the 2 that I'm choosing could
Oh,
bring
you're choosing 2. Okay.
choosing 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's start with number 1, because I think for those of you who have been in a place where there's only $200 in your bank account, or even in the far negative, let's chat about that. And then you also have a family and a stepson to take care of. That's a big deal. And then I need to know what a pigeon asshole is, because there's just no way I can live my life without knowing. So let's start with number 1, Dee. Go for it.
Okay. So my first venture was a tech company without knowing any code. So I had a tech co-founder at the time. This was the preface. The preface is 2013, 2014. Share economy was huge. Airbnb was a thing. A whole bunch of ride sharing was a thing before Uber. So we were trying to raise, but it was all bootstrapped, barring like a $10,000 grant. Tried bootstrapping that. Fast forward, I'll skip all the boring details. Some of it was pretty cool. I got to meet Guy Kawasaki, pitch him and all that stuff. Journey was awesome. Learned about growth, marketing, but we tried persevering anyway. And I was self-funding the whole thing just based off of savings. I forget what bill it is that came in, and it was a marketplace for film equipment. So if you're an ad producer or a TV series producer, you need equipment. Most of the time you need freelancers. You don't think about the equipment as separate, but this was the time also when the 5D first came out and digital photography and digital filmmaking became a thing. So it became like the iPhone, where every year was new gear. So freelancers had a lot of trouble monetizing their gear before they had to buy the next one. So I figured, hey, there might be something there. I happened to be working back then at a rental house. So I knew the producers and I knew the freelancers of my region.
Okay.
So that was already sorted. That's the preface. Fast forward to that time, Bill came in, opened my phone. Wife, Nat and Finn were just watching TV. By the way, Nat still does not know this because she doesn't like
She will
watch
now.
a lot of my, yeah,
Like reality
exactly.
TV, you're like talking into the confessional, you're like, I hate this fucking bitch. And then the next day, you're like, it's on TV, dude. Okay.
Reunion time. Yeah.
Not buckle up. You're about to find out the truth, but it all worked out.
Right.
It's fine.
Totally. So big bill came in, notification on my phone, opened it up. I had $200 something left to my name. Still had bills to pay. Finn was probably 7 or 8 at the time. So in school, all that. And I went, do I tell them or no? I had to make the call. Like my face went sheet white, but they were watching the TV. And I went, what good would telling them do, really? So didn't tell them. Split second decision, for better or worse. Next day, I went back to my little co-working space and like legit for the first half of the day, this is my desk. My head was just here. What now? And what now? Couldn't figure it out. Because you can't, for a marketplace to work, it's not like you can onboard paying customers. The marketplace has to have vibrancy. So it's not like immediate cash anyway. So I went, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to go start a website for a brand new production company in Australia. My accent sounds like I'm not from here. So my line is, I just moved to this country. I used to work in Singapore. I'm a film producer. We're doing corporate videos for like introductory price. And I pulled out all the local businesses in my area, created a calling, pretty much a hit list to call. But I had no crew and I had no gear because I was full-time on this thing. So I called all the freelancers that I did solids for and all the producers I did solids for and went, I can't pay you, but I'm going to go out and book a few gigs. I can only pay you after they pay me. So I negotiated like net 30 or 60 and just started calling. So it was typically $10,000. We're going to give it to you for 4. And I think I called 300 different businesses, got like no's, receptionists, disinterested teenager, interns, like all that. Managed to get like 12 of them. 2 of them dropped out. So managed to get 10 of them at $4K a pop. And because my pals were able to back me on this and go, yeah, we'll do the gig first, get paid after, net 30, net 60. That's how I managed to get back on my feet. But that was a close call. Super close call.
What you just said is a testament to being scrappy, but also a testament to really good relationship building. Because if you didn't have those relationships, that wouldn't have happened. If you messed up those relationships, and that's why, like I always tell people, it's 90% of what we do, and maybe that's a very high metric, maybe it's a lower percentage, but I still think it's as important, is maintaining relationships, ones that matter, ones that mean something. Because even if you didn't have the best departure, you never know what's going to happen down the line when Dee is sitting there with $200 in his bank account and goes, who and what am I going to do? And then also, like, to double down on that, Dee, like, your faceplate onto your table, like, you're smiling and laughing about it now, but I know that feeling. Like, it is like, it takes the breath out of you. There's a heavy and there's a weight, and you're like, okay. But then there's something that triggers you. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to speak for you, but you just go, focus. Now is the time. I don't want to hear anybody else. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to do anything else. I need to fucking make this work.
Yeah, totally. It calls you, like, nothing calls you to the present fear, like just inevitable doom, unless you do something about it. It's very sobering in that type of way. And I think beyond the relationship building, there was another part that really took me a long time to reflect back onto, which was, and I think Nat helped me get there in various different types of ways, not this one specifically, but just to even think to ask those freelancers and ask those contractors and ask those producers, to put myself in a position where I was able to say, I need your help.
Mm.
Without the bravado, without the, yeah, business is great, guys. What are you talking about? By the way, there's this thing I need your help with. It's not a big deal. I literally was just calling them and going, I need your help. This is the situation. Do me a solid.
And those are the people you'll never forget. And pride is an interesting thing, right? I'm going to relate back to being Chinese. Pride is very big in the Chinese culture. So I don't look Chinese. I'm half Iranian, half Chinese, but my grandparents raised me. My mom did too. And I first language was Cantonese, second is English, and third is Mandarin, right? So when I grew up very Chinese, and I grew up in Monterey Park, Alhambra, and with that though, it comes with this pride, right? You never show weakness. And I learned at a very young age that you have to ask for help, but you also have to give help. That is the biggest component. I truly believe that you should always give more than you receive. So this is also, there's a caveat to that, because people will always go, hey, yeah, I'll ask. What you're doing is you're asking and taking. But what are you doing to give and pour? And to give, you have to pour in education. You have to pour in experience. You have to continuously fill your cup.
Totally.
And now, because you were in that position, you give. It makes a lot more sense. Me meeting you now and seeing and hearing just one little story out of the 3 fun ones that we could go into, we're going to go into 2. I get it. I understand why you are the way you are, because people showed up for you. But you also had to, like, lower your pride and ask for help. But knowing you now, probably you'd bring back tenfold what they gave you, in terms of if they ever came and called you and said, Dee, I need help. Hands down, I got you.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, the Chinese thing is funny, right? Because it's always the saying, like, hey, yeah, don't make us lose face.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, Phoenix, why you make us lose face? You don't tell your neighbors.
Dude, you got it down. Who is that? Uncle Roger. Uncle Roger.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you're 100% right. And there was always this conversation too. So funny. Are you first generation or second generation?
Singaporean. On mom's side, second gen, and on dad's side, I think third gen.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm first gen.
I grew up in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I'm first gen. And it's so funny. We often reject the generation before us and how we were. So for me, I'm a lot more open, I would say, than my family is. I'm still pretty closed off, but in comparison to, like, American culture, and for you, you're Australian. So it's different. But for me, like, I love openly. I will tell you I love you. I will tell you I don't like you with the same amount of energy. And with my family, we never told each other I love you. Like, that's not really
no, that's not enough vocabulary.
It's very awkward. Like,
it's very awkward.
Gives you the
ick. It doesn't even sound sexy.
No.
It's just a whole bunch of oinking sounds.
Like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
You're like, my grandparents are like, okay. Like my grandmother, she's like in a hospice right now. And I said it to her. She hears me, but she didn't say it back. But that doesn't mean that they don't love you. It's already implied by your actions, by what you do. And it's almost like a laughter of like, why do you have to tell me? It already is true. But also, it's just as hard to be able to vocalize when you need help. And then when you ask for help, it's almost like, why are you complicating my life like this? It's very different. And I hope anyone who's listening to this, like, that's not the case. The right people will want to help you. The right people will want to cheer you on when you're winning. And when you're losing, they're here to pull you up. And I saw that about you. You're happy to watch others win, especially calling me daddy and father when you don't know me. But that helps me. It fills my heart because I go, he didn't need to do that. I appreciate that.
And that's the thing. It costs nothing.
No.
It costs nothing to lift someone else up, short of maybe some time and maybe a bit of wit, just to be like, yeah, let's be funny with this. Let's just play around with it. But it costs nothing. But I've met many individuals that think that it costs their life. They're just like, no, I'm not. That's not a line that I'm willing to even move an inch over. Right.
Some biggest names in the space that have really helped, I would say platforming in a very short amount of time, are the ones that are able to put personal brand aside and just go, I really like this person. I'm just going to push this person. And if I like this person, that the things that they create are probably going to be just as good as the person themselves. And I agree with that.
Takes a village, man.
Takes a village. Speaking of village, and it has nothing to do with village, tell me about door number 3, because this pigeon asshole thing is like killing me. I'm itching. But number 1 was important.
Just to recap, one of my execs and a very close business brother of mine gave me feedback that I was turning into a major pigeon asshole, which runs counter to what we just celebrated about me, which is lifting other people up. Right. So a pigeon asshole or a pigeon is someone that just like swoops in, shits all over everything, and just swoops away. So I'll jump into, right. So you jump into a meeting or you're in there and you're just like, why is this like that? Why is that like this? What is going on here? What is your thinking there? And then go, you're going to figure it out, right? All right. And then you just swoop away. Don't be a pigeon is the story there. And it's been a really interesting year for us. We have ambitious goals next year. I'd really love for us to, and we've talked about this internally, but I'd really love for us to be able to acquire agencies and brands. Nothing major, just get our first acquisitions under our belt. Which means to be able to do that, everything has to be operationalized or at least flowing enough so that if we're trying to fold another organization into ours, we can induct them into our ways. We have systems in place so that you don't bring something on and both crumble. I'm really aware of what that goal entails. It could go to shit real quick if you don't pre-think. So I ended up just trying to control everything to go, I see the way that it is. You guys agree that we see the way it is, but here I am in the background just doing all this type of stuff. So why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? And I started turning into that guy fueled by, it was like real Anakin Skywalker kind of dark side bullshit, which is like fueled by the good intention, but then the behavior is just like completely wrong. And when I got that feedback, which was really hard for him to give, like he's the sweetest guy. And I come across really opinionated, even though my beliefs are loosely held. I speak my mind. I'm a bit like you. If I don't agree with something, I just say it the way it is. But we also have this concept internally and I also prescribe this concept called the loudest voice in the room. When you are at a certain position, even if you say nothing, you could end up being the loudest voice in the room. Just from your face, just being like stank face, like, yeah, that's awesome, but not really awesome. Anyway. So that was really hard to hear. I could not operate for 3 days. This was 3 weeks ago, by the way.
So you took it personal because it came from somebody that you know has pure intentions.
Yes. And I also took it personal because the moment he said it, my mind zoomed back to the past like 2, 3, 4 months and saw like instant montage replay of every moment where I went right when I should have gone left or vice versa. And I was like, holy shit, what is going on? I did not know. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I was questioning everything about myself, like my relationship, with my wife. I'm like, am I like that at home? Wait, have I been like this for years? Why am I only hearing about it now? It was just question central. And it was a really hard 3 days because I lost my sense of who I am, who I was, and who I need to be. So then you're just floating around. I was floating around for 3 days and took me a bit to get my head straight.
It's that self-actualization that you just described. That is the growth. It's a continuous growth. You were just saying the previous story that you told were like putting it up on a pedestal of teamwork and being able to ask for help and all of these great things, great communication, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes down to, holy shit, you are a pigeon asshole. And does it invade other parts of your life and your relationships, your personal ones, also your professional ones? This is why I love this podcast, Dee, is because we get to talk about things that are still present, and it's an ever evolving cycle of failing and succeeding and failing and succeeding and learning. And, I'm so glad you said this because it actually just took me a second to breathe in, because I'm experiencing this with certain people in my life, and they have good intentions. And I've also noticed, let's just talk about the other side of this. So Dee, you come in, you're being a pigeon asshole, you're just shitting on everything that's going on because you're out of touch of the executional portion of it. You're out of touch of the other side and how they're feeling. Imagine you're putting all this work and you're so excited for it. And then Dee comes on the call, shits on it, doesn't really say much in terms of productivity, and then leaves. And then also from Dee's angle, I'm in hyper delegation mode. This is the position I've fought and clawed my way to be at. So fix it. But it's not how things work anymore. No, this reminds me of something beautiful that we could potentially talk about. The boy who cried wolf. Okay. This has been so applicable in this season in my life, Dee, is somebody will come call you. My mom, I love you, mom, so much. But we had this conversation the other day. She just calls nonstop, which I love because that means she loves me. However, I'm at the point where I'm starting to screen her calls. It's really shitty to get your mother's calls. Why are you screening your mother's calls? Why? Because you have to prioritize your time. And the last 4 calls that I've answered are just to talk about things that maybe don't necessarily need to be spoken about right now. We can talk about it later. So then what happens when one of those calls is an emergency? What happens when in one of those calls actually she needs you? But you're screening the calls. It's the same conversation in business. You constantly say there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire. The house is on fire. But
there's a real fire.
Then everyone that's supposed to put out the fire is numb. Everyone's numb. I don't think we realize that. I've decided as a CEO, because I work in tech. I literally work in first party data. There's going to be outages. There's going to be things that fall through. There's a lot of variables in play. And I have to take 10 steps back and go, no, what we're doing is great. We can always get better at these things. And yelling at my team or getting upset at my team for not executing at the level that I maybe might have done at that point in time, or expectations wise, does not validate you being able to be an asshole to people, because that causes 10 times more damage in the long run than it would right now just to solve the simple thing. And don't be the boy who cried wolf.
No, totally. Absolutely. And I think a lot of us, it's such a convenient word to use in business, optimize.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, no, we got to optimize this, we got to optimize that. And I say this to the team all the time. Be very careful to identify properly whether something needs optimizing or something needs fixing. Because if you're broken down on the highway, you don't call and say, hey, can you come optimize my car? It needs fixing, right? So that's a fire. So anything outside of that, we need to do better, but it's not broken. So let's call it what it is. Helps to calm the nerves, helps to calm your own nerves, as well as the people you're communicating with. It's just this nice little shift. And I think that was the hole that I fell into. One, I'm also a very self-critical person, very unhealthy. Please, would not recommend. 1 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend.
That's Dee. We're not allowed to be S.
Yeah, exactly.
B is for
And
bitch.
yeah. And C is for useless, which is, and I have that script in my head. Growing up, we spoke Cantonese at home, and that script in my head is always grandma, out of love, but in a very, grandma grew up in an era where when she was a kid, her punishment for doing like something wrong was kneeling on overturned bottle caps
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
holding 2 pails of water. So it's a special kind of love. Someone like that. This is how
Americans are
special.
weak as shit. When was the last
Right,
time you knelt down on overturned bottle caps and held jugs of water? Come
right,
on. I
right.
love it.
While your family was eating dinner inside within like eye shot. Anyway, so growing up, the script was always like useless was the term, even, but growing up westernized, it has a very different meaning in English compared to
Yeah.
how colloquial it is and
Yeah.
how easily flung around it is in our culture. So that script runs all the time, which I do a lot of work to try to deprogram. But I think when everything came to a head with what was happening at work and the goals we're trying to hit and missing quarterly kind of targets, that's when that script came up again. And I think that's what caused the whole thing. Super painful. On the flip side, after those 3 days, something really interesting happened. And you nailed it right on the head. The voice that showed up was, "You're out of touch. What is wrong with you? You were on the ground floor day one. You talk about this whole like day one hungry thing. What happened?" So the week after, so now I am in as many of our team meetings as possible. I play the mute game as much as possible.
Wow.
Stay on mute as much as possible. And the only time I try to, at least, and it's only been 2 or 3 weeks, but the only time I do unmute is to either celebrate someone or ask a really genuine question for me to reintroduce myself to the work or get the work reintroduced to me. And that has been so enriching. And to then get a Slack from the guy who gave me the feedback and said, "I see you," was the best feeling I've had like all year.
It's that you didn't need the confirmation, but you needed the confirmation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also there's this idea that you need to be main character, but you could still be the main character without being the one that speaks the most.
Yeah.
Crazy. I never knew that before. I always did. It's this idea where you're very competitive. You want to be at the front. You want to be at the front. You want to be noticed. And usually people who are in the front are the ones who are speaking. And that's not always the case. Sometimes when you speak too much, you unfortunately lose out on the beautiful things that could come from your team members, what they're thinking. And again, I'm learning all that too. I'm going, oh shit, shut up. So many better things could be happening. And your role now is leading. Your role now is so different than what it was before. You're in this tactical mode. Back in the day, you wanted to impress everyone with your tactics. And now it's not about tactics. It's about leadership and moving the ship in the right direction. Yeah, no, I love everything that you said. And also in Asian culture, self-deprecation is really big. Is like it hits hard because it was a little different for me because I took a different route. I told myself like, no, you're the fucking shit. Just go for it.
Nice. Yeah.
You kind of have to, but I also see that in you when you said that. And I'm like, oh, I know the heaviness that comes with it because I saw the generational pain that it brought. However, there is a strength to it. There's a reason why the Asian community gets shit done.
It's really walking that line and tempering that. Yeah, exactly. And growing up Asian Western, I'm going to use a broader term here, is funky too. Because you see your family and then you see your chosen family, your friends and all that. And you go, wait, these people think this is right. And these people think that is right. But when I put them together, they don't seem quite as, where am I?
You have to set the lines of morality. You have to set the lines of everything and what you
cultural norms.
I'm so happy we're on this call together because it's exactly that. To my Western friends, I'm a fucking asshole. And to my Chinese family, I'm weak. Oh, crazy.
Yes. I had that perfect moment come to a head the first time Nat and Finn met my parents. We all met in Melbourne, right? They flew from Singapore to Melbourne. We flew from Brisbane to Melbourne. It was the first time they met. My wife went in for a hug. My mom did like a half bow, like a hello, one of those ones, like Neho.
Yeah.
It was like, where's my phone? Why didn't I record this? I was just like, there, that is my life explained in one gesture from two different people.
Okay, I'll one up you. Ryan, first time he's meeting my fiance, first time he's meeting my Chinese side of the family. Okay. And look, in my family, you talk about everything: politics, all of things, racial, everything, right?
Bowel movements,
bowel, everything. Grandparents are like wet farting down the road.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. And you're just like, yeah, okay. And he comes and we have a banquet. Like, it's not a banquet, but we got our own room at this Chinese restaurant, which is, again, very common. He comes in there. It's 11 a.m. My grandfather throws down a bottle of XO, and which is I don't know if it's a brandy or a whiskey, whatever. Pours a shot, gives it to Ryan. Ryan's like, it's 11 a.m. Like, shut up and do it. Okay. They bring out the karaoke machine. They're just going ham karaoke. It's my grandfather's birthday. My grandfather speaks a little bit of English, but this is them testing him. He doesn't realize. And they hand the mic over to Ryan and they go, my grandpa gives the mic over to Ryan and goes, tell me something for my birthday. Wish me a happy birthday. And Ryan grabs the mic and he's looking at me and I'm like, I can't help you. I don't know what you want from me. I'll do it. I have no problems. But
yeah, you're on your own, bro.
And he's, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to meet you.
Yes. You just made my life. 2023 is made.
And now we're getting married. So he clearly passed the test. And my grandma was like, so for me.
Wow. Okay.
So in other words, his nose is beautiful, like the way his nose is. And that's a very big thing in our culture. Sorry, we're taking all the listeners down culture lane today, but
yeah.
There's just such significance. And I think the way that you lead, and I hope that we continue our friendship after this, is there's so many similarities and there's a lot of discernment of, yes, I'm willing to put up with that. No, but also self-actualization, self-growth, understanding and listening to your peers when they take a moment to pull you aside and say, Dee, what you're doing is shit. I don't like that you did this, and trusting that you're going to do something about it.
Yes. It's one of the reasons why I lost the sense of myself during those 3 days was because even though I've said it explicitly in the past, it clearly didn't land. What I said explicitly in the past was, when I put something out like that with such conviction, in my mind, my mental cue is that you are my thought partner to rub up against my idea and pushback might be the wrong term to use, but present yours just as hard, because I care about the merit of the thing rather than me. But it's one thing to say those things. It's one thing to verbalize that. It's another thing to know how to set the environment where they feel that, not logically know that.
But also
psychological safety kind of a thing.
Yeah, but let me just take the veil off of this really quick. It's also culturally, we're bound to, at least for me, like fighting was a good thing. And debating, like a hot, heated debate, was almost like a little bit of a high. So then once you're done with it, you move on and you don't think back. And unfortunately, people who don't align with that culture, because it's not just Asian culture, far beyond that. Unless you find a partner, unless you find people that work with you that adapt well to that, it actually can hurt tenfold. So for that person to go, hey, you're not meeting me in a place that I feel is productive or helpful, and is able to give you that in a calm manner without you being able to fight back because you're just quiet now and you're like, shit, this person's right, is a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah, that's when the dance doesn't work. Someone leads, someone follow, they take the lead, you follow, and then you got to have a vibrant dance. It's a bit like fencing. It's a bit like jousting, right? You got to have that tension, and out of that tension comes the good stuff. But again, that's why I lost my sense of self again. It's because it's not only me, it's me in relation to these other people that are closest to me, what does that actually mean? So a lot of recalibration had to occur because it's not really an on-off switch. There's a spectrum as well, like picking the moment when to do that, when to listen, when to speak up, when to state my thoughts, or maybe propose a solution. So during those 3 days, one of the things I had to go back to was there's this one author, Michael Bungay Stanier, Aussie guy. He's and a really funky last name. Anyway, he's like the go-to like coaching guy. He's made his name for writing books about coaching. And so he talks about the advice trap, which is a book called The Advice Trap. And typically there are 3 traps that we fall into. We fall into either control it, save it, or tell it. Right? So you're trying to control the situation, because if you don't control it, it's going to go haywire. This meeting's going to go out of hand. And then now you blame yourself. Or these people, I'd see the vision. They might not see it the same way as me. They're reporting back and talking about actions that they've taken. It seems like they need saving. Right? And then the other one is just, you got to just tell it because they're not hearing it. So tell it again, tell it louder, tell it a different way, and you tell it. The difficulty with all 3 of these is have you heard of the Karpman drama triangle?
Are you talking about what I think you're talking about? Only Karpman is from the show.
No, Karpman.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, a prosecutor, rescuer, victim.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
I don't know this, but
it's something to possibly Google. Karpman, Karp, and not fuck you guys.
Yeah. I was like, go there and see we go there.
Yeah. Anyway, so the point being, you feel like you're a rescuer for too long, you end up persecuting. Because everyone around you start to see like why can't they help themselves? Why can't they? What is wrong? And so you start persecuting. So it comes from a bad place. So get out of that triangle completely. That was my 3 days of reintroducing myself to all these concepts again, to be able to do that, because I see my job a lot like an orchestra conductor. The moment I have to go get the fuck out of the way and I start playing the trumpet, I'm violating my job. No one's conducting anymore.
That's so good. That's so good. The minute that you start picking up the trumpet, you're not doing your job anymore as a conductor. You can't
to save the song.
It's not an orchestra to save the song. It's not an orchestra if you're playing every single instrument at different times, because now they're just a bunch of solos, and it's not an orchestra. It's not a symphony. It's nothing. That was beautifully put. Dee, I will say this. I think that anybody that works under you is very lucky.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope they feel the same way.
I hope
PS time.
I hope you give yourself grace. But that being said, about grace, now let's give other people less grace. We're going into hot takes.
Let's do it.
Do it. So did you prepare a hot take? Did you do your Chinese homework? And did you prepare a hot take? Because if not, I have one based on
I want to hear yours first.
I don't like Guy Kawasaki.
Wow. I can see that. I can see the case for that. But I'd like to hear why.
I grew up with a Guy Kawasaki as a stepfather. Okay. So I grew up with a very wealthy man, very powerful man in the medical industry. So originally I was supposed to be a doctor, actually. Funny, haha, very Asian. And I didn't. And in that process, I went through a lot of verbal and emotional abuse. And I think he learned how to love me the way that he best knew how. I don't want to fault him for anything like that, but there were a lot of the way and the mannerisms and the way the guy is and the very matter-of-fact way he is, which I understand has brought him to the degree that he's at, which, by the way, if you are at that degree, seldom are you sane. Just saying. Seldom, when you have empathy and sympathy, as much as we right now are, I would say, putting them on a pillar, it will also hinder you from reaching that level of quote-unquote success, because I don't value that as success. The way that he shuts other people up because he wants to hear his own voice, the way that he's very matter-of-fact of how things are, very seldom does he open and listen to other people's thought processes, is the lifetime value of that for him is limited. He is in his way, and just like you were saying, out of touch. And I sit there also because I am a child of that type of behavior for 18 plus years. It was almost, I sat there with my fiance. I was watching these clips because they're all viral clips, right? On Instagram, TikTok, whatever, of him. And I looked at Ryan and I wrote, you think this is great. right? Because he's, oh yeah, I agree with him. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I went, you think he's great? And that just that was a trigger for me. And experience will very much shape who you are as a person. I was like, you love me because that person raised me, and I'm the opposite of that. And you don't even realize it. So I don't like Guy. I don't fault you for hanging out and talking about
no. Robert Kiyosaki?
Robert. Okay, I'm talking about Guy. Is it Guy? Did I get his name wrong?
No, Guy Kawasaki is the Apple evangelist one.
Hold on.
Robert Kiyosaki was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay, so I was talking about the right. I just said his name wrong. So Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, I don't like him. So I don't know why.
I'm with you. That one I'm with you. Here's my hot take to parlay yours. When someone hands me that book, I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
When it comes to that dude, I don't know what it is. I'm like, I want to like you so much, man. You're like an Asian dad. I like Asian people. Like, I'm just biased that way. But what the fuck is going on right now? Are there good things in the book? Sure. But when they start putting the dude up on I'm like, yo, I've seen the videos, man. There's some weird shit going on back there. I can't. Not one of us. I don't know how.
Not one of us. Don't claim him. Okay, cool. I just get names wrong, apparently. But no, okay, we're on the same page. So we're talking about Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which has helped a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. That book has helped and give a lot of perspective. I think it resonates with Americans more than it does with people maybe who are like halfsies like we are. But
brownsies.
Okay, so that's a hot take. Do you have another hot take for me?
This one's piss weak, but I firmly believe it.
Okay.
The moment someone says, you know what? I'm really self-aware. Nope.
No, you're not.
Just nope. I'm so like self-aware.
I'm really a kind person, Dee.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's okay for you to be a little self-deprecating and then be able to say those things. I'm very mean. I know those things. I am mean. But then when I go, I'm very nice. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Like, yeah, no, I know that already. I'm very self-aware. It's like, why are we having this fucking conversation then? If you knew that already, that's why we're having this conversation. Yeah. Okay.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay. My other hot take. Drinking and getting fucked up before getting on stage is not cool.
How's that a hot take?
It's a hot take for people who are in like the circuit of speaking, which you were in. I'd be stoked if you came back into, but there's this idea of partying. I'm a victim to this. I'm not like shitting on people because I feel like it.
Don't be a pigeon.
Don't be a pigeon. No, I am this way. I think the last Affiliate World Dubai, it was my first time on main stage. And it was like, oh my God, this is a big deal. And I went out. I didn't even go out. I specifically didn't go out much, but they always have these functions you need to go out to. And I was at one of them and I drank a little bit of champagne. I know that I don't do well with champagne. Don't know why I drank it. Phil poured it down my throat as a joke. We got it all on film. It's like super funny. The next day, while I'm getting up on stage, I don't have, what's it called? Stage fright?
Nice.
I don't know. I wasn't born with it. I'm very blessed for that. Whatever. I'll take it as far as it can go. And I'm shaking. And my body's shaking and rejecting it. And I'm getting up on stage and I'm not shaking from nervousness. I'm shaking because my body's rejecting the alcohol from the night before. And I had a self-aware moment where I went, you're really fucking shitty, Phoenix. You flew 16 hours out here. All these people flew out here, not just for you, but this moment, they're here for you. And you decided to just drink alcohol and party the night before because it was fun when they came here for education.
Did you get the booze sweats?
I did.
I feel you, girl. I feel you.
And I was so mad. Anyway, the point of the matter is, it's just not cool. Do it when you're done. I don't know. That's my little hot take because people don't think that's a hot take, but it is. I'm calling everyone out, including myself.
I think a lot of people have, a lot of speakers have, it's like watching that band that plays at the bar every Friday. They've gotten so used to playing at the bar every Friday that it's, all right. They're just going through the motions. Like they're so used to it. And the audience is just, ooh, this is going to be fun. It's my date night, or we're going to watch this band. And they're just like half drunk and getting the chords all wrong. And they're mumbling. And be a class act. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, that one hit my soul, but it's true. It's so true. But okay, I'm gonna round this out with a couple things. The
Mm,
first one I ask every one of my guests is, how much money did you make at your first job? And salary wise. And the reason why I ask is I'm not going to ask you for receipts, screenshots. You could do that another time. But I think often we keep looking at where Dee is now and don't forget where Dee was and where Dee
totally.
started. Come on, guys. So go ahead and I'll tell you mine.
Okay, I started working since I was 15. So I was making bank. I was making bank. So $8 an hour at a call center for a telecommunications company because the Y2K bug was coming and people were getting issued bills for like $20,000 because it just reset. So we were the front lines of like getting all those complaints. That's why they were like, 16-year-old, can you speak English? Come on through. Overtime was $18. I was like, sign me up. So
Slang.
that was my first thing. My first full-time job, I was on 50K a year.
You beat everybody, by the way, Dee. Let's just let the record show Dee knows how to negotiate because, okay, I think Sean Mulkeen was 28. I think Shaq was like 17K professional soccer. I was 38.5 or 38.7, and that was me negotiating, trying to get 40. I think that Van was 12K, knocking door to door, selling pest control or something else or insurance. We all have these
Nice.
crazy stories. Nobody's making bank, guys, except for Dee on overtime, but nobody's making bank. And I love this little exercise because it makes you smile. You go back and you're like,
No, totally. When I was like, come on, a 15-year-old making $18 an hour, I was like, imagine all the
at the
PlayStation
time
games.
that you were too, forget inflation in comparison to what it is today. Like that is probably the equivalent of like $25 an hour right now, which is crazy too. And then also it comes into perspective too, is I always say this, that 50K or that 18 or even that 8 an hour probably felt so much better than whatever we make now for some reason, because it's sweeter and it's like sweat. So it's saltier and it's just good. Yeah.
Totally. And the world was our oyster. And like when you're 15 and you got 18 bucks, and you're just waiting for that paycheck, and you're like, wow,
Things I could
this
do.
is awesome. Yeah, totally.
The candy I could buy. Okay. The last one before we really round it out is I teach, I don't know if you know this, I teach at a university called Cal Lutheran University. And I educate them not only on digital marketing, but first party data. I think that's clearly a very
That's
big
cool.
thing
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
mine. Yeah. But that being said, I see a lot of kids coming out of, I teach seniors, juniors and seniors mainly. And I see them coming out and demanding really high pay or demanding X, Y, or Z. And I always tell them mentorship is the highest form of currency, good mentorship, rather. And all of my industry titans, including Dee, I want you to tell them something, 2 lines, 3 lines. What is your advice coming out? What would you like them to know?
Be really clear to Phoenix's point, boys and girls. Be really clear what you want and what you're going to allow yourself to take a back seat on. So if I want money out the gate, I might have to take a back seat on finding the job that's going to teach me the most because I have a manager who takes the time to actually show me the ropes. Because what's going to happen? I'm going to ask for a high paying job. What's the boss going to think? Yeah, that kid's really expensive. They better know what they're doing. So I'm going to expect results. So then you're just there in your own little like booth going, holy shit, I got this project. I have never done this before, but I can't quite ask anyone because I pitched myself real hard. Then you're fucked. So unfuck yourself. And right, if that's what you want and you think you can back yourself, go for it. But go cozy up with a few people that like go, hey, I don't quite know what I'm doing here. You got my back or what? Otherwise, go out there, eat some humble pie, but accrue as much experience currency as possible and find someone who's willing to take you under their wing. You might kiss a few frogs. That's okay, right? But once you find that person, you could end up with a ride or die. And people don't really stay at jobs for that long. So we're really concerned about that. They might move to another joint. And because you were this like strong, got their back, they might take you along with them. Better opportunities there. Like, you got time.
Relationships, guys. Oh, everything is so good. I kiss so many ugly ass fucking frogs, and some of them's in jail right now. But I think Ashton, one of them, is in jail for him too. Ashton Shanks, we're talking to, and rough, right? That's life, and you have to make the decision of what are you going after. And relationships are huge. To your point, like that mentorship is key because the people. Beautiful example. My mentor, my first job, the one that was 38.5 or 7, whatever, she is now the head of marketing for the US division of one of the biggest appliance companies in the world. Okay. So she hit me up the other day. She calls me. She's like, hey, can I pick your brain about Facebook? And I'm like, what? She goes, can I take an hour of your time every Saturday or Sunday and we can go over this? And I'd be so grateful and thankful. And she was so humble. Mind you, she taught me everything in terms of note taking to work ethic to all that. She took me under her wing. I still put her up here. And I'm like, you want to learn from me? And it's full circle where it's, oh shit, you nurtured that relationship. That mentor mentored you. And now I wouldn't say you mentor her, but like you get to give something back with no stress.
Now the student has become the teacher.
What is this? Some Yoda shit. Wax on, wax off, bitch.
Yeah.
Okay, Dee. It has been a complete and total honor. And anybody who gets to listen to this podcast has had their life enriched. I fully believe that. And that's what this whole podcast is about. I don't need sponsorships. I just need good conversation. If you want to sponsor me with free shit like Meta, if you want to
do it.
Get the gear that you sent me, but not me,
you're missing out. Get into the ground floor sponsors. You want to get in now before it gets too big. That's when you get the bad deal. Get the good
Brixton
deal.
clearly got the clue because
right.
But Dee, where can we find you? I'm going to put all your handles down regardless, but where can they find you straight from you?
At Real Dose of D. Twitter is usually where I go now. I need to pick up my LinkedIn game. I quite enjoy the LinkedIn game, but at Real Dose of D on all platforms, but I'm most active on Twitter. Before we go though, thank you so much for having me. My life is a little bit more enriched because of this. I had so much fun. I really did. And I'm so glad we got to meet like this.
I know. And like crazy that it's almost special that we got to meet on a podcast of all things. So I'm honestly so grateful. And look, on to bigger things together. And I'm going to be rooting you on from the sidelines regardless and keeping them open. All right. Well, that being said, guys, thank you for listening. I hope, again, like I always say, you're on the treadmill and you didn't fall off. And this makes you and your brain think a little bit harder. If you're looking at the hot girl, the hot guy lifting weights and going, wow, thank you, Fail with Fire /AdBeacon /Dee Deng /Phoenix Ha. This was worth it. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And until the next episode, bye.